Hello and welcome. My name is Gustavo Cunha, and I will moderate this Crowe webinar, a partnership between Crowe Portugal and Crowe Hungary. Let me start off by introducing Crowe Global. Crowe Global currently ranks 9th in the international ranking of consulting and auditing firms and is composed of a network of more than 770 offices in 150 countries with over 42,000 employees. With over 90 years of experience, Crowe bases its service on a high level of specialization in business areas adapted to the culture and values of each country or region. This time, our speakers will be from Crowe Portugal, Luís Lobo Silva, Associate Partner of Information Security, and from Crowe Hungary, Ákos Kormos, Managing Consultant, and Csongor Kölber, also Managing Consultant. Should you have any questions, please write them on the chat and we'll go through them before the end of this briefing for the Q&A. We'll start this briefing with Luís Silva, who over the past 25 years has been involved in infrastructure projects, information security management, digital operation resilience, risk management, standards and regulatory compliance in both the public and private sectors, and is the Associate Partner for Information Security Management and Cybersecurity at Crowe Portugal. Luís Silva is an advisor for the digital economy of Airlis and a member of the Strategic Commission for the Digital Economy of CIP. Now over to Luís. Welcome, Luís.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ákos. Thank you, Csongor. Glad to have you all with us and attending this webinar. For the next 40 minutes, more or less, we'll try to give you some insights regarding how digital trust is evolving in the face of quantum computing. We hope you find it useful. Just giving you a very short resume about information security and cybersecurity unit at Crowe in Portugal, and feel free to involve us in the near future, even for just a brainstorm about these issues. Thank you. So the agenda for today is about integrity. Okay. Gustavo, please, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So about Crowe Advisory Portugal, information security unit. We address information security management and cybersecurity on a holistic approach to technology, processes, and people. These are the main pillars. Gustavo, please. And we can go to the next. Our methodologies are based on international frameworks, structuring the conceptual deployment on a NIST approach, like identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Also, mapping this framework to the national cybersecurity framework. Gustavo, please, for the next slide. Our integrated management model relies on 2 dimensions and 8 pillars: corporate, audit and compliance, organization, operations, communications to authorities, risk management, information security strategy, and incident handling. Gustavo, please, to the next. Today we'll discuss as I said, today we'll discuss how organizations can prepare for the shift of using post-quantum signatures. And now, from over here, I'll pass to Ákos. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luís.
So let's just...
let me just,
go ahead.
time being, introduce Ákos and Csongor just for a second. So next on the agenda, Ákos and Kormos and Csongor Kölber from Crowe FST in Hungary. Ákos and Csongor are managing consultants, and they support companies in business development and go-to-market strategy initiatives across green energy, logistics, and post-quantum cryptography. They have worked on public and private sectors projects throughout North America, LATAM, and EMEA, helping organizations translate emerging technologies into scalable, viable growth strategies. Ákos and Csongor focus on sustainable growth models driven by strategic partnerships and cross-border market expansion. In addition to their consulting work, Ákos and Csongor have served as teaching assistants at Corvinus University of Budapest and have received multiple awards in business and strategy competitions across Europe, North America, and Australia. They hold degrees in international business from Corvinus University of Budapest. And now, okay, over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Gustavo. And let us dive deeper into the quantum world. I will start with a bold statement. We are entering the next industrial revolution, and this time this is driven by quantum computing. For decades, computing progress has been incremental, with faster processors, more storage, better algorithms. But quantum computing represents something fundamentally different. This time, it's not just faster computing, it's a completely new way of computing. To illustrate the scale of this shift, let's look at this well-known benchmark problem used to test computational power by Google. A traditional quantum computer, traditional supercomputer solving a traditional problem would take roughly 10 septillion years. This is 10 to the power of 25 years to solve this problem by Google. To put this into perspective, the age of the universe is about 13.8 billion years, so it's a lot more than the age of the universe. But Gustavo, if you move to the next, if we compare this to Google's Willow quantum chip, it solved it in about 5 minutes. And this difference is not just an improvement, it's a complete paradigm shift in computational power and computing power. If you move to the next, this breakthrough opens the door to solving problems that were previously considered impossible. For example, in pharmaceutical research, quantum computing can simulate complex molecular isomeric interactions at unprecedented level of accuracy. This has the potential to dramatically accelerate drug discovery, development, reducing both time and cost, creating an efficient drug development. For example, in financial services, quantum algorithms can significantly improve risk modeling, portfolio optimizations, and also fraud detection, enabling completely just utterly faster and more accurate decision-making in highly complex markets. And perhaps most importantly, quantum computing could help us tackle global challenges like the climate change, from designing new sustainable materials to also optimizing energy grids and improving climate models. Quantum systems could unlock solutions that classical computers simply cannot compute and not able to compute. However, this, like every powerful technology, quantum computing has also a different side. While it enables transformative innovation, it also introduces serious cybersecurity implications. Many of the cryptographic systems that currently secure digital world, including banking, communications, and national infrastructure, could potentially be broken by sufficiently advanced quantum computers. In other words, quantum computing is not just the next frontier of innovation, it may also become the next frontier of cyber warfare. And that's exactly why understanding this technology, both its opportunities and its risks, is becoming critical for organizations today.
Thank you, Ákos. So let me continue with the core issue. The quantum threat is not only about some future supercomputer eventually breaking encryption. The real problem is that sensitive data can be stolen today and decrypted later, once quantum computers mature. This is called the harvest now, decrypt later risk. Harvesting part is already active now, and it matters most for information with long shelf life, like contracts, financial records, legal evidence, strategic communications, and regulated data. So today's digital trust model still relies heavily on public key cryptography. including a cryptography behind secure communications and digital signatures. Once sufficiently capable quantum computer systems arrive, those foundations become vulnerable. For organizations that create three very practical exposure areas. So first, confidentiality risk. Previously captured data may no longer stay confidential. Second, integrity risk. Documents, records, or messages could be altered in ways that are harder to detect if trust mechanisms are broken. And third, operational risk. The core financial and business processes that depend on trusted digital exchange may be disrupted. This is especially important because digitally signed documents are not just files. They are legal and business trust anchors. If that trust is weakened, the downstream impact is commercial, legal, and also reputational. So that is why quantum security is no longer a theoretical discussion. It is now a resilience discussion. So if we move further, one slide, please, Gustavo, let's look at the urgency. So organizations are not being asked to think about post-quantum solution because it is fashionable. They are being pushed there by standards bodies, regulators, and sector authorities. NIST finalized its 3 PQC standards in August 2024. The European Union followed with a coordinated transition roadmap in June 2025. Starting that, member states should begin transitioning by the end of 2026 and move critical infrastructure as soon as possible, including digitally signed documents, no later than end of 2030. Then, in early 2026, the G7 Cyber Expert Group published a roadmap for the financial sector, explicitly urging timely, coordinated migration planning before the current mechanisms break. So what that means in business terms is simple. The question is no longer whether organizations should prepare, but how quickly they can identify their most exposed touch points and start to change. As you can see on the slides, industries with long-lived data and long-lived systems are under the greatest pressure, especially finance, government, healthcare, and critical infrastructure. And in those sectors, digitally signed documents are a practical, sensitive weak point because authenticity and legal enforceability matter just as much as confidentiality. So just to give you a quick summary here, the urgency is coming from both sides at once. Rising technical risk and rising institutional expectations. That combination is what turns quantum readiness into a board-level issue. Ákos?
Now that we have discussed the growing quantum threat, if we move to the next slide, please, Gustavo. The next one, yes. And the regulatory response, let's look at this very concrete implication, which is document manipulation. So at first glance, if you look at the two loan agreements here, this might sound like a technical issue, but in reality, it's a business and legal risk. Imagine these as standard financial agreements. Everything looks legitimate. The signatures are valid, the formatting is intact, the document appears completely authentic. But now imagine, if you look at just the interest rate, that one small number inside the contract has been altered. For example, here from 4.25% to 3.25%. It's just a 1 percentage point difference. Yet, over the lifetime of a multi-million euro loan, this change could represent hundreds of thousands or even millions in financial impact. And here's where the risk becomes serious. In a quantum-enabled attack scenario, a digitally signed document could potentially be modified in a way that leaves no visible trace. the manipulated version could still appear perfectly valid, including the digital signature, which means there may be no reliable technical evidence that the document was ever altered. From a legal perspective, this creates a significant problem, because if two parties present different versions of the same signed document in court and both appear cryptographically valid, it becomes extremely difficult for the court to determine which version is the true original. It's truly impossible. And this risk is not limited to loan agreements. This is just an example. The same issue applies to merger contracts, supplier agreements, insurance claims, intellectual property filings, regulatory approvals, essentially any document where even a small change could have major financial or strategic consequences. And what we are looking at is essentially a new form of digital forgery. Not the traditional type where documents look suspicious or signatures are clearly fake. Instead, a scenario where a manipulated document appears completely legitimate, legally binding, and technically valid. And that is exactly why organizations must start thinking not only about quantum safe encryption, but also about how to ensure the long-term integrity and authenticity of critical documents in a post-quantum world. Over to you, Csongor.
Thank you, Ákos. So if we move to the next slide, please, Gustavo. Yes, so what is the answer to this risk? Today, the most practical and scalable answer is post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. PQC uses new cryptographic algorithms designed to resist attacks from both classical and quantum computers, while still fitting into conventional digital systems. That is important because it means organizations do not have to wait for new infrastructures like quantum networks to begin protecting themselves. They can start through softwares, architecture, and standards-based migration. So the Bank for International Statement, BIS, has described PQC as a viable near-term solution, while also warning that the change is not a simple one-for-one swap and needs careful planning. So basically, all the standards level NIST, FIPS 203 covers key establishment for secure communications, while FIPS 204 and FIPS 205 cover digital signatures. So there is a very vital distinction for this presentation that matters. So the communications security protects data in motion, but signature security protects authenticity, integrity, and non-repudiation. In other words, it protects whether a signed document can still be trusted as genuine. So that is exactly why PQC is so relevant. It is not only about encrypting better. It is about preserving trust in digitally signed business records in a post-quantum world. And that is why PQC stands out as a leading solution today. It is standardized, implementable, and directly aligned with the most exposed trust mechanisms in a modern business. To you, Ákos.
Thank you so much, Csongor. So after understanding what PQC is, the natural question becomes, okay, how does this solve the problem? And many organizations immediately assume the answer is simple. Okay, let's just switch to post-quantum cryptography-based signatures. But when we look a little bit closer, at a closer lens, the situation is a bit more nuanced. On the left side of the slide, we see PQC digital signatures. These are essentially the next generation of today's digital signatures using quantum-resistant cryptographic algorithms, such as mentioned by Csongor. The goal is straightforward, protecting the identity of the signer and also the validity of the signature, even in the quantum era. Technically, this is very promising. However, there is a critical practical challenge disadvantage. Today, regulatory frameworks legal systems and the audit standards are still built around existing digital signature infrastructures and cryptography. And post-quantum signatures are not yet broadly recognized in courts or regulatory environments, and adopting them would typically require replacing existing signature systems and workflows, or re-signing everything twice, 3 times. So while PQC signatures are clearly part of the long-term future, they are not yet a practical solution for most organizations today. However, let's look at now the right side, PQC attestations. So instead of replacing the digital signatures, PQC attestation adds something completely different. A cryptographically protected record of evidence. So after the document is signed, a quantum secure record is created that captures proof of the document's originality and integrity. This record can later be independently verified and audited. And most importantly, it does not replace existing signature processes. It works after the signing process has been done, meaning that organizations can keep their current workflows, platforms, and compliance structures without interference. And this makes a huge, significant strategic difference because current regulations already recognize independent digital records of evidence. Therefore, PQC attestations can be adopted within existing legal and regulatory frameworks right now. Practically, if we look at the practical horizon, say next 3 to 5 years, this is the distinction that becomes really, really clear and critical, because replacing all digital signatures with PQC signatures will take time. But implementing PQC attestation is something that organizations can begin doing much, much sooner to ensure that the originality and integrity of their documents remain provable, even in the post-quantum world. And that shift from simply trusting a signature to being able to prove the original document forever is the key idea behind this approach. Over to you, Csongor.
Thank you, Ákos. So if we move to the next slide, please. So one of the key messages that post-quantum readiness is a journey, not a single deployment. So the right path begins with awareness, discovery, and planning. Organizations first need visibility. Where do we use vulnerable cryptography? Which process depends on digital signatures? What data has long confidentiality life? And which systems are the hardest to change? So that inventory work is foundational, and both industry roadmaps and financial sector guidance emphasizes it as the starting point. So the next step from there is targeted migration and pilots on the most critical touch points that includes digital signatures, data flows, and communications. That is the right framing, because early wins should focus on the areas where the risk is high and the trust requirement is the strongest. So after that comes the full-scale transition across the broader environment, supported by cryptographic agility, governance, vendor coordination, and ongoing monitoring. So the vital point here is that organizations do not need to solve everything at once, but they do need to start now in a structured way. So the message we want you to remember is this: quantum readiness is not about predicting the exact day the threat becomes or arrives. It's about making sure that your most important digital assets remain trusted, enforceable, and secure when that day does arrive. Ákos?
So if we move to the next slide, the key question we should ask: what does this transition actually mean for organizations why should companies start preparing today? And there are three key benefits. First is business continuity. Very important. Many organizations depend on digital documents that must remain valid for years or even decades. These are the loan agreements, merger contracts, intellectual property records, regulatory filings, and many, many, many others. If the cryptography protecting those documents becomes obsolete, and we know it will become obsolete, organizations could face a serious challenge. Their most important agreements may become difficult to verify or defend in court. Quantum-safe document attestation helps prevent exactly this problem, exactly this scenario. It preserves proof of originality and integrity, ensuring that digitally signed documents remain trustworthy and legally enforceable over time, even as cryptographic standards evolve. The second point is competitive advantage and market trust. Trust is becoming one of the most important currencies in the digital economy. Organizations that proactively adopt quantum-resistant security measures demonstrate that they are forward-thinking and security-driven, thus building trust. For industries where trust is critical, like finance, healthcare, legal services, or supply chains even, this can significantly strengthen stakeholder confidence and differentiate organizations in the market. And third, regulatory readiness, regulatory compliance. Regulators and standards bodies around the world are preparing for the post-quantum transition. Organizations that start aligning with emerging cryptographic standards today will be much, much better positioned when new compliance expectations arrive. So instead of reacting later under pressure, they can build a future-ready foundation now. And ultimately, establishing cryptographic longevity is about something very simple, but very, very powerful. Making sure the digital agreements and records your organization relies on today will still be trusted tomorrow. And in a world moving towards quantum computing, this long-term trust is quickly becoming a strategic requirement, not just a technical one. Over to you, Luís.
Thank you, Ákos. Very interesting indeed. And I must say that quantum computing will lead us for sure and lead information security management to another level. And cryptography is an important requirement regulation in Europe that in Europe is looking regulation in Europe is looking after. And we already have an interesting question on the Q&As just to answer at the end. But now we are going to introduce you a technology that we are working with to help us with these issues. So SignQuantum. In SignQuantum, the drive is helping organizations with integrity and probative strengths of their documents and assure authenticity, integrity, and also very important, non-repudiation on what concerns to information. These three principles are the pillars of digital trust, and if any of them fail, the reliability of digital transaction is compromised. Gustavo, please, could we go next? Okay. What is SignQuantum? That's why we recently joined the partnership with SignQuantum, whose technology is based on a quantum-resistant CAN blockchain, and we are here today to show you a little bit more about the features and non-disruptive deployment architecture. Gustavo, please, another slide. And this is the problem. Current algorithms like RSA and ECC will eventually become vulnerable to quantum attacks, like Csongor and Ákos have been talking about. Even if that moment is uncertain, the transition needs to begin now. Gustavo, please. Harvest now, as Ákos talked about before, harvest now, decrypt later. This is the key risk, where attackers collect encrypted data today with intention of decrypting it once quantum capabilities are available. Next, please, Gustavo. Like we have heard before in this presentation, organizations rely on this technology to safeguard their assets while strengthening the security and trust of partners and clients. This is particularly critical for long-lived data such as contracts, financial records, intellectual property, and regulatory documentation, just like bank loan agreement and insurance agreement. Gustavo, please, the next slide. So now I will leave you with Ákos. Ákos, please, can you go over?
Absolutely. So if you move to the next slide, what we see here is actually how SignQuantum fits into the existing signing workflows without disrupting the current existing workflows. This requires no disruption, no retraining. The users continue signing documents as they always have, using the platforms they always had, like DocuSign or Adobe Sign. And behind the scenes is where the magic happens. SignQuantum retrieves the signed document via an API, generates a cryptographic hash, and anchors that metadata onto the quantum-resistant blockchain. This creates a mathematically provable timestamp. And finally, after all this, a post-quantum re-authentication certificate is issued and distributed to all signers, ensuring that long-term future-proof trust is in the document. Over to you, Csongor.
Yes, so before we continue, I would just like to add here one more thing. So it is like very important to emphasize is that if you have older signed documents that can still go through SignQuantum, and that old documents can be also quantum proofed. So like this is a very vital feature of SignQuantum. So please, Gustavo, as we move on to the next slide, where we will briefly take a look at how your post-quantum certificate looks like. So you received this via email after this attestation has taken place. So basically, it contains all the relevant information received from the e-signature software, plus the post-quantum signature of the signed document and the data of the post-quantum signature and the hash stored on the quantum-resistant enterprise blockchain. So you get all this, and also a other point to mention that this certificate can be branded. So for example, if your company starts to use it and you sign documents with a client or a other company, then you can put branding on this and people will see it as well. So Gustavo, please, the next slide. Thank you very much. So I would like to just touch upon three points here that are worth mentioning. So the plug and play nature of SignQuantum. So at SignQuantum, the team behind it worked very hard to make it plug and play. So no disruption will take place, because who wants to implement a solution that is disrupting your currently existing infrastructure? So that is way less ideal, obviously, than this. And also it integrates with like top e-signature softwares like DocuSign, Dropbox Sign, and Adobe Sign, and everything else what you might use your custom solution SignQuantum can work with it, and Crowe can help you on how to implement it. So this is, as we mentioned previously in the beginning part, SignQuantum uses FIPS 204. So this is NIST's primary recommended post-quantum algorithm. So it is now fixed that this is the one to use for documents like this. So 2-in-1 security. The original document hash is recorded. So using immutable quantum-resistant blockchain technology, which makes tampering with timestamps mathematically impossible. And with this, it defeats time-traveling attack like Harvest Now. That threat is active, and decrypt later. Once these bad actors have access to a quantum computer, they can look into and modify your information that they are collecting now. Next slide, please. Thank you, Gustavo. And Ákos, please go ahead.
Thank you, Csongor. So SignQuantum is designed for enterprise-grade deployment. This means that it runs on premises within organizations' infrastructure, and it integrates seamlessly in a plug-and-play manner with the existing e-signature platforms that it's compatible with, while adding a very modular backend with the signing client, the connector, the PQC generator, and the certificate engine. The data is stored securely with the scalable components, like the obviously storage databases that adapts to the environment required, and also the system interfaces with the Quant enterprise blockchain nodes to anchor trust, while logs and notification services ensure that it's traceable and operationally transparent and self-verifiable. If you move to the next slide, please. So we do understand that post-quantum signatures alone are not enough. Without a trusted, immutable anchor, mathematical anchor, this long-term validity that we try to create can still be challenged. And this is where the Quant Enterprise blockchain comes in. This provides the required quantum resistance with the compatible infrastructure designed for durability and verifiability and speed, so that anchoring the document hashes on-chain, SignQuantum ensures that every signature is backed by a tamper-proof, mathematically provable record. And the result is not just digital trust, but also trust that holds up in a post-quantum world. Let's move to the next slide, please. So as we wrap up today, let's just take one step back. What we are seeing with post-quantum security is a shift that's already underway. It's already happening, not something far out in the future, but something that organizations need to start factoring into decisions now. For many, the real challenge isn't understanding the risk. It's knowing where to begin and how to move forward without disrupting what already works. And that's where we focus. At Crowe, together with SignQuantum, we work with organizations to turn this from a complex, abstract topic into something very practical, very actionable, especially when it comes to protecting digital documents and signatures over the long term. Because for most organizations, This comes down to continuity and confidence, making sure that the agreements we sign today, the records we rely on, and also the transactions we execute still hold their integrity and be trusted years from now. We're already seeing this in practice. From early national level adoption in Europe to large-scale implementations like UNO Bank, securing millions of digital signatures every year. The path forward is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. Start assessing where quantum risk intersects with your business. Identify the documents and processes that need long-term assurance. And most importantly, begin introducing quantum resilient approaches in a way that fits your environment. If you would like to explore that further, you can scan the QR code on the screen or connect with our team after the session. We would be happy to continue the conversation and look at what this could mean in your context. Thank you again for joining us today. Over to you, Gustavo.
Very good. Thank you. So now we have some questions from our audience. So I believe the first question is what are the most common reasons organizations don't move from interest to a pilot or from a pilot to production on post-quantum document integrity?
Yeah, so I can take it. So basically what we can see based on the organizations we have been talking to, they are indeed exploring the opportunities to like implement PQC solutions like SignQuantum, but they are very rarely making it like public right now because they are implementing it in the process. So like we mentioned, that this has to be planned and it takes a few years to kind of go through it. So it is certainly happening what like we can see and based on the conversations like what we have. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, very good. We have this broader question now for either you or Ákos. What led you to choose SignQuantum? And what do you believe makes SignQuantum stand out from its competitors?
Yeah, I will be the one taking this. And so what led us to choose SignQuantum? I think one of the most important aspects is know-how. Like know-how that nobody else in the world has about post-quantum security, how the world is moving forward. And if you have that, and if knowing what Crowe has, and you combine that, you have a clear winner. And this is the key reason behind this, so that we can combine our knowledge to actually solve those critical problems that is really having incredible significance in not only the future, but also today. To answer what we believe makes SignQuantum stand out from the competitors is three things. Number one is the plug and play manner. So we have thoroughly analyzed every potential competitor, and there is actually no competitor to SignQuantum that has this functionality, this features, and solves this problem in the same smooth manner without any disruption to any workflow. The second one is its blockchain anchoring. This is also unheard. And the third one is basically that it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying to solve something really, really practical. So they're not saying, okay, let's replace everything, because most PQC signatures do that. They're saying, okay, this is what we know, and to solve the problem right now, and obviously in the future, because this will hold value in the future, we need attestations. And that's the key.
Yeah, thank you, Ákos. I just want to have an addition. So there was the last part of this question, like how is the work with SignQuantum team going forward? So basically, Crowe with the Crowe Hungary's initiative, Crowe Portugal is also part of it. This amazing team, what they have in Crowe Portugal. So like basically, Crowe is opening doors for like SignQuantum as well, and we are working on together with SignQuantum to like have a very good go-to-market plan strategy, and also when it comes to implementation, we have few pilots going on, and we are in discussion with some companies. So this is the basic scope of the collaboration, and me personally, I really like working together with SignQuantum because they are again amazing team, very visionary, and have amazing products like SignQuantum. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Csongor.
much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Csongor. Thank you, Ákos. Yes, I believe the three main reasons Ákos spoke about are very important, namely the change management cost. And this is not a disruptive architecture as we have talked about. Thank you. Nice. And I think we have more.
I think we have time for at least another one.
Yeah. Choose one.
So in the
maybe.
chat, we're having this question. I'm not sure if this is public, but are you using a private blockchain built with Quan or the Quan public blockchain?
Yeah. So I actually want to have these two questions meshed together. So what is a vital distinction that Quant's enterprise blockchain is up and running? So that means enterprises can use it. So the question is how it will connect to the public blockchain that is that has to be asked from like SignQuantum team. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Csongor. And I believe this brings us to the end of today's session. I'd like to thank all our speakers and participants for joining us. And the full recording will soon be available on Crowe Portugal's YouTube channel. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out through our website, www.crowe.pt. Thank you once again, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Ákos.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.